Great experiences don't build themselves.
Behind every personalized journey is complexity, tools, teams, and tech.
AI moves fast. Expectations move faster.
Adobe Experience Cloud offers the power, but strategy turns potential into performance.
This is Off the Grid with Brandy.
Subscribe, align your stack, accelerate your enterprise. You're listening to Off the Grid with Brandy, the podcast that turns enterprise chaos into clarity. We decode technology with insights from industry leaders and experts at AM Analytics Consulting. Let's dive in.
Okay. So welcome to Off the Grid with Brandy. We're on with Tushar Kulkarni. And today as our topic, we're going to be talking about AI, right? AI, startup, and startups. So you've had a great career in regards to yours being able to start up organizations and kind of keep them going. So I'd love to start off with an introduction from you.
Oh, yeah. No, well, firstly, a huge fan, and thanks for having me on your podcast. I really enjoyed our conversation first time we met. And so my background is, so I'm a physics grad who got into computers somewhere around kind of like end of 99, like mid to end of 90s. And I always had passion, like tinkering passion. And so I kept launching different startups. Every time I found a gap, I tried to come up with a solution. And in those days, I realized that because of the internet, the entry barriers were low. So, you didn't need a whole lot of resources. So anyone could pretty much launch their companies. And so I started launching different startups. And fast forward to 2009, I formed this current company called Big Kitty Labs as a technical incubator because we wanted to launch a lot of ideas, launch a lot of products around different ideas. And one thing led to another. We pivoted to a software company because we started getting popular, and folks started approaching us saying that, guys, like you're developing rapid, innovative software. So can you help us? And needless to say, like that was a kind of like an instant launch of this company that we have today. And so under Big Kitty Labs umbrella, so it's grown quite a bit in the last 16 years. And we do a majority chunk of work we still do is developing software for several clients, ranging from tech startups to large enterprises. And we also have our own products because we still love, finding finding opportunities and building different solutions around them. And so kind of tinker a lot on different things. And I'll definitely get into some of the interesting stuff as this conversation progresses.
Yeah, I think, to be a pioneer, and a lot of people don't have opportunities to be the pioneering force of, especially like software development, and then being able to incorporate some of those solutioning. So like being a pioneer and having also customers believe in you, that's super important, in this journey, and to be able to really expand that. So that's a great story. Super great. What was one of your first exposures to like software development and like engineering?
The very first one was when I was right out of the physics lab. Physics is where I started tinkering with because it helped to set the foundation for my career because essentially it was like the basics of the electronics that helped to get into the logical thinking that is required to be a developer. So It was kind of those early days, and that's when we started tinkering on different solutions. Of course, it was kind of like in many ways, the early days of this huge trend we saw in the last 20 years. So we had we didn't have all of these tools that you have today, but we kind of so some of the initial products we started developing were kind of like products for some friends, like who were approaching us. So me and my friends, we started developing products for accounting firms or some other firms. I remember I created, this is like in the 90s, I built a small reservation system for like railways for people to buy remote tickets and stuff. So those were the kind of like early projects, but needless to say, that grew into passion, which kind of led into me starting a kind of e-commerce company in the late 90s. Which kind of which did a little bit better, but then that kind of folded into another opportunity and so forth.
I think that's how it happens, right? Especially with like digital marketing and e-commerce, it can start to branch off into so many things that, you know, you just idealistically, you don't even know directionally where it's going to go. Because e-commerce turns into digital marketing and content management, and it can expand so wide.
Very much. That's pretty much, Brandy, like how it started. Like one opportunity kind of led to another one. Like, for example, like, from physics to kind of like getting into coding to doing small modules and products. This is like in the early days of internet, where we were literally doing what we call thick clients, because internet was not that prevalent, at least in India where I grew up. And then that led into like next thing is start building e-commerce platforms and so forth. Very much like you said.
Yeah, it can definitely go. Can you talk about maybe, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs don't necessarily always have an opportunity to talk about like their first company and how you built it, and, you know, what were the technical stacks that you were working with. And I think that's good for like younger entrepreneurs to kind of know, so that they can understand how to really be able to, you know, build something holistically, right? Especially their first time around.
Oh yeah. So no, definitely. Like so my first e-commerce platform was in 1998, and this is what I was referring to earlier. So that e-commerce platform was we wanted to bring. Now, mind you, this is the days of internet. This might seem a little childish now, but what we wanted to create was we wanted to bring a shopping experience to the online world.
Nice.
And what we did was we thought, well, you know, how do you bring that experience? So you build virtual mannequins. You have like a little bit of like in those days, dragging and dropping apparel and matching them and getting recommendations was a huge thing. In those days we were kind of focusing on that experience. And what we realized in those days, so we didn't have slew of open source solutions that you have today.
Yeah.
Not to mention AI. We haven't gotten into that conversation yet, but one of the things we learned was, you know, as you're building a company, you need a team, because even though I was a coder, I was not a good designer, and I was good at back-end coding, so I was not really a front-end guy. So I had to learn that higher. So essentially, one of the things that was my first experience into leadership role, because you definitely need to have that. Like technology can only help you, you know, get so far. Like, you know, kind of running a company is a whole slew. It's a slew on another, like a set of battles. So that was my first experience, and those were the basic building blocks. Like technology part, like you got it covered. Look, fast forward today, you have ton of tools available. Like for example, you're starting an e-commerce platform. You can go from Shopify to WooCommerce to whatnot. You can just immediately do that. You want to build a proof of concept. You can use, you know, any other AI tools. Like Claude just launched like 4 days ago. They're another cool utility that you can just, with few clicks, you can build something. But needless to say, you have to, as you're launching something, you have to kind of see 4 steps ahead.
Yeah.
4 steps ahead and kind of thinking, and we'll get into some of those things, because I can talk a little bit about that as well, because tech part these days is relatively easier.
Yeah.
You just have to think from scaling perspective, not from just the technical aspect, but also from the business aspect. Where are my resources coming from, and how can I make them last longer?
Yeah.
And how can I keep my audience happy and so forth. But all good questions. Like, so those were the battles of the 90s, but now, you know, you can definitely bring speed to your building process.
Yeah. I think even because we work with developers and because my partner's based in Hyderabad, so we work with some partners and development partners in Hyderabad, but we also have some partners in Europe, right? So, like you said, like I think the technical piece is a little bit more readily available, but you do have to start looking at not just from like a technical perspective, but leadership is so important because if your leaders or your CEOs or COOs or CTOs don't know how to divide and conquer, and if they're absorbing all of that work, then it can allow your organization to be unbalanced.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I'll be honest, I really didn't know that I had that quality at all. Like somewhere long down the road, I discovered that, well, I guess, yeah, like I've been, I have that quality, or at least to some extent, because what happened was, so there are three battles you're constantly doing. One is constantly identifying and retaining the talent, identifying and like retaining your clients, because every business needs revenue, and then there's the constant battle of managing resources and at the same time keeping everybody happy and making sure that you're scaling as well. I mean, so you're constantly, so being a leader, because before I got into leadership position, like I had the typical approach, a typical attitude of like, well, yeah, like leader's job is just to boss around and get stuff done. So that was I kid you not, that is exactly what I thought. And so what happened was after quite a few failures of the company. Like, so let's say that e-commerce company I talked about, it didn't have a sweet ending. Then there were a couple of other ventures I was part of. They kind of did okay, but they didn't like have the exits that I was looking for. And so then eventually, I started realizing, understand, you have to learn from those failures. And you do. When you start losing money, you absolutely do. That's the quickest way to, learn. So by the time we this company was started, like I knew exactly what I need to do right to keep on scaling and growing. And yeah, I got fortunate. And then needless to say, firstly, I realized was that like you have to have super humility and got to be a good listener, gotta work harder than everyone else, which is the key. And just build bridges and just keeps like learning from experience and rinse and repeat. So you're 100% right. Like that is, I know it sounds like a soft skill, but even though when you're running a tech platform, yeah, you do need heavy, like you need heavy technical talent, all of that. But at the same time, as a leader, you need to have both sides. You need to have, because you're building a company. So
yeah, I agree. Especially like now running my own organization, it's been, it's different. You really do have to, have the foresight and you have to be able to be a thought leader into what that looks like. And I think a lot of times that thought leadership can be completely missing, because thought leadership is more about incorporation of what the future looks like, but also in regards to integration,
100%. Like, and sorry for interrupting you, but that has been, I cannot stress on that enough, because now what is happening is if you'd have looked at my week 2 years ago or 2.5 years ago, I was staying on top of tech trends. I was trying to tinker with a little bit of code, do all of that, but that has amped up to a crazy extent now, because every day there is a new thing that is coming out of the gates, and as a leader, you need to know. As a leader, you have, so my weekends are pretty much packed. I'm like a student, who's got his exams the next day, and I'm
Yeah.
like I have like every weekend. So I bookmark like 200 YouTube videos, 20 articles, and you're right. Like I've been talking to different leaders in the industry like you and asking them, are you doing the same thing? Like it's like at least like I used to get some hours before before this AI explosion, and now it's just and what do you do? Like that's the life we've kind of
Yeah.
embarked upon. That's the journey we embarked upon, and we have to stay on top of this.
We
Yeah.
do. We'll have to share articles with each other. But what's
Oh,
up? Yeah.
We should. It is. It is. There are so many newsletters that are coming my way that I literally. So being a create a separate Gmail account to digest to bring all of those newsletters there, and then I'm developing an AI agent to stay on top of those newsletters.
Nice. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll share that with you. Like, because how do we? Because you literally need a virtual assistant to summarize things, help you stay on top of that, how that relates with your work, how you can cross apply it in different areas. Yeah. You literally. Yeah. See, I like you even more because that is the thing I was telling somebody earlier that like you have to, because they were saying, why do you have to spend your entire weekends on reading? I was like, I don't think I have a choice.
Yeah. I was I met with someone at a university, and we were just talking AI, and it got so deep into the whole concept of so many different things, which I don't want to share his idea because it wouldn't be fair. But you have to stay on top of it. So also when other thought leaders come to you, you can know what they're talking about too. So it's important. It's super important.
And what happens is that like in what we do, Brandy, you're constantly like because now what has happened is that, say, there was a certain way you designed your software architecture.
Yeah.
And now with the emergence of, because pretty much 7 out of 10 projects we're working on right now involve virtual, AI agents.
Yeah.
And so now the architecture is changing. Again, for example, like in December, model context protocol got introduced by Anthropic. That has become an industry standard. Now that is another thing you got to take into consideration. Now I'm sure like things are so rapidly evolving, they will start having more and more impact on how you are designing your architecture, how you're scaling your company. So as a leader, especially in tech, like for somebody like you and me, we need to know some of these things. And and there goes our weekend.
Yeah, completely.
Actually, there goes our. I wish I could say
our life now.
don't have. Yeah, very true. Very true. You know what? I'm really looking forward to those. Neuralink kind of embeddings that we can get in our heads. That way, we'll be digesting information.
I totally agree. I think the more you have, more you adjust to what the technical advances are, and you understand, again, because we're both back-end developers. Like, I'm a Java developer, like you said, you're back-end, right? So once we understand the inner workings, especially as back-end developers, then it's nothing but, it just continues to grow from that point. But to understand the architectural structure of things, but for us to understand and digest some of those concepts early on, we're almost, 5 times ahead of the game. So then it's just more so digestible information, to your point, So I get it. What do you think one of the most impressive AI use cases that you've implemented across some company or some clients so far?
So one of the there have been let's go back to like 2011 or 2012.
Nice.
In the early days of we there's a reason why we called it labs, Big Kitty Labs, because lab was we're constant tinkerers. We're constantly tinkering with different ideas and products. And the problem that we've been trying to solve since those days is literally this problem of information overload. Like, how do you stay on top of this? Like, how you're digesting? So we were using natural language processing back then,
Nice.
sentiment analysis back then, and added a little bit of machine learning back then. And so in those days, like so we've been applying AI in several domains since then. Like we have applied it in even in vision. And so but fast forward today, one of my favorite applications, which we're fortunate to be a part of, is an application called UB Vision, which is a product of a company called UB Here, which is my very close friend and a business partner's company. It does spatial intelligence. So it does object tracking in space-time, and it does spatial intelligence, anomaly detection, and the reason why I find it really cool, because it has some heavy math underneath it, but the beauty of this platform is that you can do so much. You can do so much with that by masking PI. Because, for example, like we are working with so many different concepts with this. So we just came out of Stealth. A disclaimer is that I'm also part equity holder in the company, but I find it fascinating. So we're working on 20 different domains using AI, but this one fascinates me because it is so scalable, and it is. So we're working with companies where you can literally track, like, who walked into the store, when they were, how quickly they were attended, or what's the staff like? Did staff like quickly approach them, or say, for example, like we're applying it in with local municipalities where they're doing anomaly detection. Like if a car accident happened, immediately notify paramedics or notify like fire department, or if somebody fell, didn't get up, like do something about it. Or there's so many different applications. So this is one promising tech that we are fortunate to be a part of, and that one does fascinate me. There are a couple of other ones that we're working on. Like, for example, we worked a little bit. We did some fancy AI work for a pharma company, but I cannot talk about that. But that was another cool one. I was kind of excited about that because that kind of stuff really impacts lives. Like that will have really positive, somewhere down the road, like 10 years from now or something, it will have some good applications that will impact healthcare in a positive manner. So those are the different applications. Apart from that, many of them are around data processing, or like I was talking about, like information management and so forth.
Yeah. We've worked a lot in a lot of different kind of industries too, very specific. So like you're saying, industry specific, when it's something like more in like community involvement, that really hits my heart, right? To where we can kind of maybe change what the diaspora looks like, but then also too, what's super impactful is like working within the healthcare industry too, because those are things that you can start to physically see some of like the changes too. But the space industry, wow, you guys are way ahead of the game there, and I can imagine how fun that is.
Oh no, I mean that one, like this vision one. Like I love the founder. Like he's he's got several very interesting inventions. This is like one of the really cool techs, and we just came out of Stealth like 6 or 7 months ago, and you will not believe this. Like I have to yet meet a company. The minute I talk about this, they want to pilot or try it out. Like one of our other friends, like, they want to try it out for their quality inspection. So they do certain type of service for different retail outlets and everything, and they want to use this to see if proper quality work was done. Because you can if your eyes can see the pattern, so can the cameras, and then you can track that, measure, quantify that. Wow. And you can do reporting. Yeah, you can do intelligent reporting. You can do notification. I mean, you can do so much with this stuff. But I gotta tell you, like, I take zero credit because I'm not math guy. I'm not the guy. It's work a lot of smart, way savvier scientists than I am. So Yeah, I just love to talk about it. I'm more on the application side of things, not the development side of things.
Yeah, no, that sounds so fun. What do you think your approach is in regards to making AI tools enterprise grade, right? Especially around, like you were talking about, especially compliance, which a lot of companies aren't looking into right now as big of an issue as it really is, right? Reliability and uptime. Yeah.
Oh yeah, so that is really a very good question, because as you mentioned, one of the key aspects is it starts with compliance.
It does.
Understanding, all of the regulatory aspects and everything that are in place. So earlier early in the conversation, you mentioned something very interesting that was around, like, the basic tenets of software development kind of stay the same. So for example, even in non AI applications, you're always cognizant of data isolation.
Yeah.
You always have, like, even before the emergence of AI, we always had applications like, when you're following certain protocols where you're encrypting the data at rest, in transit, implement audit trails, permissioned access, and so forth. So all of this stuff, it stays the same.
Yeah.
So to make enterprise grade, like, you just have that layered obligation where you're focusing on, as you rightfully mentioned, like, compliance comes first, and then, like, you're following all of these protocols. And then, needless to say, some of the things that we do is we also, depending on how the application is distributed. For example, certain type of applications, like, for example, we have applications that are hosted in European region. So you have to follow, like, segmented approach, not just logical, but also physical. So you're kind of taking all of that into account, and that's where the scalability perspective comes into the picture. That do you have the right compliance protocols in place, the security protocols in place, the data and privacy protocols in place. So those are the things that we always take into account. And needless to say, like, these days, with the AI layer, you also have to kind of think a little bit about, like, responsible AI. So you're kind of taking some of those, like, aspects into account as well. But it always goes back to what you said earlier in the conversation, that if you're a traditional developer, you should already be following some of these practices. You should already be following some of these practices. Now, I'm definitely, AI is an accelerator, so you have to be a bit more cognizant of some of these things about, like, are you introducing a bias in the system? Is it transparent enough? Can you understand, how the inference was made and all of that stuff. So there's definitely some more nuances to it, but the basic tenets stay the same, like you mentioned.
I agree. What do you think? And in regards to, like you were saying, kind of like the intrusion points are, in regards to rail guards, how do you believe that companies can be more efficient in regards to, having some of those rail guards up against anything kind of essentially infiltrating, right? Because you're going to have that, right? It's going to be a big infiltration. It's going to be, even with now, it's accelerator, right? Now we do have to worry about more kind of intrusion points, in regards to across the board from a development perspective.
Yeah, and so that is where, like, so there are multiple aspects of this thing. So the short answer is that, like, you have to integrate responsibility as a design constraint.
I agree.
Not as a separate review phase. Like, and to do that, like, you really have to, as you're going through the entire project analysis phase, like, every feature spec should have, like, failure modes and social consequences and all of that. But and they need to be. You need to have that foresight baked into the architecture. But what happens in reality? What happens, Brandy, is that, like, it's a job of stakeholders to so for example, my job is, as I'm discussing AI, is to talk with my peers and help them understand the importance of all of these design constraints.
Yeah.
Because what happens is that, like, the world we are in is fast, and how can you make things a bit more economic, right?
Yeah.
You're constrained by resources, where some of these things can get sidelined and pushed out to future phases.
Yeah.
But what happens is that it's kind of, you're pushing away, like, yeah, I get it that you need a prototype, you need prototype fast, but many times prototypes don't get discarded. You're building on top of that, and then you're building on top of that, and that's where I think it's more of an education thing. Technical part of it is you do have like proper guardrails that you can learn from. So there are proper frameworks you can that help you plan all of this. There are proper like libraries you can implement. So the technical part of it, yeah, I'm worried about it, but not as much worried as the planning and having that foresight built into the architecture.
I agree.
Where you implement some of those design constraints. But yeah, it's a conversation that you need to have several times in the earlier phase of the project, and have markers throughout the project where you're meeting certain expectations.
I agree, especially with the frameworks. Yeah, I agree with the incorporation. Like, are there any tools or frameworks that you're excited about that are really kind of hitting you a little bit harder to kind of utilize? Yeah.
Oh yeah. So needless to say, like every developer, we are huge. We're huge fans of like LangChain, and we've been doing a lot of like. We've been doing a lot of development like with LangChain. That's mainly because you get a great first pass at and use it as scaffolding tool. Especially for like you're experimenting with flow compositions or all of that. Maybe you can always use the different. I mean, there are several other ones, but LangChain is kind of like by far like one of the most common denominator in our space. We've been also using Llama Index because that offers like a clean abstraction over document ingestion and some other retrieval pipelines and some other stuff. But the other one that like is getting used more and more in our space is LangGraph, and which is providing a bit more kind of like stateful agent flows and kind of helping out building branching and stuff. But I can just, if I have to summarize this, I can say just LangChain and LangGraph, and like that's our kind of like a go-to stuff. And as you and I were joking in the earlier part of the chat, gotta keep reading every weekend and experimenting. Gotta keep reading every weekend and experimenting. but so far we've been like, okay, what is helping scaling so far? Let's stick with that. And on the side, there are a couple of like team members that are helping evaluating different tool sets. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I always agree. One thing that I've always implemented, even when I was a manager of the organization, from owning my own organization, is you always have your team, but you always have an innovative kind of researcher that's always consistently looking into what's the new, right? What's the new, right? So that you can always be abreast on that. And if it's inclusion within your organization, then you can have that because you've already had somebody just doing the research. So organizations should always have a research assistant almost, right? That's consistently going to be on top of whatever and on the side, not just researching it, right? But doing implementations.
I completely agree. I completely agree. But yeah, there's definitely good news is that some of the stuff is available most of the stuff is available for free. Yeah. So you can pretty much quickly implement stuff, tinker with it, and start testing things out.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of going into platform to scale, right? And from a both kind of technical and operational perspective, when building, Big Kitty Labs into a multinational platform, how did the software infrastructure evolve, and how did you also kind of maintain it, make sure that it was evolving in the correct way?
Oh, that's a really good question. So Brandy, so just like so at a company level, we pivoted a lot. We pivoted a lot in the early days, because you have to, just the way it happens with many startups. Like, so in the early startup-y days, we were trying to figure out our positioning, our revenue model, everything. And needless to say, in the early days, we began as a monolithic, kind of had a monolithic approach, and gradually decomposed of that. So I mean, it wasn't just like a technical evolution. So, but then again, like as I was saying, that we were building a slew of products, which kind of helped to build a very, very scalable model that we are today, because we were very technology and platform agnostic company since our early days. Like, we started literally, like, in the early days, we started mobile dev in 2009, 2010, or we started like automation and like sentiment analysis and everything in 2010, 2011. And then fast forward today, as our as our AI workloads grew, we separated like separated like into more cleaner, like a model serving data pipelines, and started like into kind of like our orchestration logic kind of improved, and now like we're not that monolithic kind of model which was in the earlier days, and because we like, without, I'm avoiding like technical jargon, but like talking about it, like kind of like our model was like kind of evolved into like a cleaner model serving data pipelines, and
Nice.
and from that into orchestration logic and kind of like user interface layers, and eventually they were all decoupled and containerized. And needless to say, today, like, it's all event-driven architecture.
Yeah.
It's all event-driven architecture, and the way it's designed is like AI actions are triggered asynchronously, but are tracked, deterministically. But it's been a huge evolution, but avoiding like all the technical jargons, like it's just from the early days, we've kind of tried to stay tech agnostic. Like, anytime there's a problem, we analyze it, and then we come up with the architecture, and then we try to pick the tool which serves which will help you solve the problem with foresight in mind. Like, okay, well, how would it look in 2 years? Will it still stand the test of time, and so forth? But sorry, that was a long answer, but I was trying
No,
to
that's okay. And we don't
how everything evolved. It evolved like a startup. Like, started with like, I joke. So just a small story. I tell this everyone. Like, one of the first projects we worked on in 2009 was like, somebody wanted us to develop kind of like a simple tool to import Excel. This is like 2009. Like I said, like, can you develop intense parser that will intake all of that data and into a system? And then little did we know, they wanted to, they love that solution, what we developed so much. They're like, okay, now we want you to like tie that into releasing mobile apps, like compiling all of that into mobile apps and releasing mobile apps. And so we were like so thankful of the architecture we picked. So we're always kind of cognizant on like, okay, well, is this going to scale? If it's going to scale, then yeah. But
And you have to kind of know that too. Scalability, right? Like you said, event architect, all of those things are important as you're kind of designing out like your long-term modules and also your long-term processes. And you have to have something that's consistently kind of congruent with the market, right? So that you can really be able to grow your space. Because if you don't, it can be bad.
so my pet, so hundreds, so we must have developed, oh my goodness, 300 to 400 solutions.
Yeah.
And so Brandon, I have over 30 years of software experience, or say close to 27, 28 years of software experience. But one thing I always tell people is that if it's written well, it's going to keep working till the environment it's hosted on breaks. And one of my favorite examples of that was there was this PHP utility we had written in the early days of the company in 2009 for a friend. And or it was 2009 or 2010. 2 years ago, I get a call from the same friend, and he said, "Hey, I'm avoiding like giving a whole lot of details because I don't have the friend's permission." But he said, "Hey, that domain is not working." I was like, "Which domain?" And I kept like, so most of my domains are on auto renewal, and I had even forgotten about that. So I started to backtrack it, and that was developed by this amazing developer we had on the team. And believe it or not, I did not get hacked. Did not get like I was actually surprised. We all forgot about it. I did it. So the friend was like, "Hey, it was early days." He said, "Hey, we'll connect you to the ecosystem." So I said, "We'll do this free thing for you." It was running really well for like 12, 13 years.
Wow.
And it was just well. And you know why it stopped working? Because that group that it was sending emails to grew so big that the server thought it was a spamming utility. So it wasn't even that there was anything wrong with the code or something. But so to your point, like like there are like a lot of like technical things you can talk about, but like follow the basic construct and then pick a tool that you're going to use to solve a problem.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's important, is structural kind of organization so that you can have continued success. How do you handle data locality, multilingual AI, right? And latencies across like global regions, right?
Oh yeah. So that is like some of the stuff we kind of touched upon a little bit when we're talking about the enterprise grade stuff.
Yeah.
So we have clients that are in European region and we have clients that are in the US. So what we usually do is we segment the data physically and logically. And so, for example, for some of our clients in EU, we tend to deploy. So, for example, one of our clients, we deployed like things in Frankfurt. So it's kind of like completely segmented out architecturally and also physically. And so wherever multilingual AI is needed, what we usually do is we kind of leverage language agnostic models. And for whatever, like for embeddings and fine tuning. And so for now in some cases, so for example, one of the products we own is a company called Redbud. So that is one of our own products. And using that as an example, so Redbud needs so it's used by indoor farming community a lot. And in indoor farming, like it's popular all over the world. So we support like at least 6 or 7 languages on it, from French, Italian, Spanish, like a ton of them. What we do is like for smaller regional models, so we kind of use them for better cultural nuances, but we usually use multilingual AI models, which kind of helps out in the overall purpose. And regarding your question on, I think you mentioned latency as well, right? So that is kind of like that is where we have some really smart architects on the team. So they kind of try to solve that with proper architectural choices. Some of the things could be like, caching embeddings, like proper caching, or in some cases like pre-computing or something like that. But those are the things that are like way above my pay grade. Like they would be able to answer some of those better. But yeah, we have like some really smart guys on the team. They kind of help to figure that part out a lot more. They know about that a lot better than I do.
Yeah. I guess in regards to even like building a team, how do you currently access now like technical talent to be able to have, AI product teams, and like how do you scale up, right? And ensure that you're scaling in the right direction?
Oh, that's a great question, because it's more than just, do you know Python or some other things that I was mentioning, like, do you know LangChain or LangGraph, or I think I think to quote like one of the AI guys on the team, like we started looking for fluency in abstraction, and like so. For example, like can someone? So of course, like you need to have like the basic skills. There's no doubt about that. Like you need to understand better practices and all of that good stuff. But more than that, like can someone move between data and model and system level thinking? Like and like some of the skills that you discussed earlier, which are kind of underrated, are like could be prompt evaluation or say data curation or say here's one like can you explain a model behavior to any non-technical stakeholders, because I myself struggle with some of that. And so those are the things that we kind of ask when we were interviewing. Like I was actually just interviewing somebody earlier, and if they needless to say, like even if they understand some of this at a higher level, that they have the inclination to adapt themselves to the this modern way of life now with the way where things are evolving. So those are the things we kind of look for, along with your basic coding skills and other aspects.
I think what we've done is we've really been able to kind of tap into maybe a little bit of like underrated students sort of, right? And so we started a tech program with people who had no knowledge of tech, right? We put them in a very kind of high tense training program, learn Python, learn prompt engineering, so let's kind of get you into that perspective. And then, really allow people to, tell them we believe in them, right? So that they can have some success at the end of it, because sometimes people need just a little pat in the back and they need to know somebody believes in them. And then you start to see what differentiators that starts to like really, project, right? So we wanted to kind of take a different approach of like, how do we kind of continue to have evolution, right? But then also everybody may not understand the skill set, but that doesn't mean that they can't learn it, So,
very true. And then that the minute you kind of get involved in, that process, like just working on one small project will kind of help you, get in the groove of things.
Yeah. That's what happened with me. I think my first one was turning like a light from red to green or something, How do you encourage, AI experimentation without risking like the tech debt and also your deliverables, right?
Oh yeah, so that's where the labs thing comes handy. Is we're constantly tinkering. So so we do a lot of like isolated experiments in sandboxes and version environments. Actually, we built a very popular sandbox about a year ago with the municipality of Hilliard, Ohio. So they're like huge proponents of the tech ecosystem, and we work with them on a lot of things. And that's when we kind of collaborated with them, because one of the things at one of the events I pitched to them a need for the sandbox for all of the tech startups to have access to, which will not only reduce the barriers, because when you're building something, you have to, most of the startups, we're very, we work with quite a few of them, and, everyone is very resource, some of the resource usage. So we kind of talked about building this sandbox where you can contain your compute costs, you can host a secure environment, you can do all of that good stuff, you can calculate your token usage and everything before you go live. And they literally approved that, and so they helped us with the hardware. We built the software on top of it. Wow. So we have built like several of these environments, and what we do is like we kind of isolate and experiment in these sandboxes, and the outcome gets it gets logged, scored, and time boxed, and we have built like ton of utilities like that where we have, we've kind of like developed ton of utilities and like kind of used all of those learnings, our learnings, some of the teams that we've encouraged to use those environments, and then kind of slowly percolate that into real life. So that's what, so if, like right now, if anything, like there's a huge need for some of this because it's like very, very early stage in this AI evolution. So yeah, that's what we've been encouraging and we've been developing. And like actually just today, I was with a friend and I asked him to get a permission with the Hilliard team so we can onboard them on the environment and they can start doing something similar.
I love
So
that.
that is definitely, a lot of experimentation without tech debt. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe we can partner with our school in the labs.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like seriously, like I would be more than happy to do the introduction, and they're very welcoming. They're actually that got so popular that they're actually. So I was just with them this morning when I was introducing them to my friend, and they're signing a second check on this another hardware. So now we have. So it took us 3 or 4 months to build that software infrastructure where you can quickly onboard teams and spin off different language models based on your needs, like kind of like small parameters models, not like large ones. But that stuff got so popular that now they're helping us build a second one.
I love that. I mean, you have to have incubators, right? And you have to have labs where people can kind of come in and they can really be for, shooting, right?
Yeah, very much. And then once you have access to we're also talking to some universities that because this experiment got very popular. So some universities want to use it so that they can give their students access to that same infrastructure, so they can also get their hands dirty, start tinkering, helping us out. Like, okay, there's no decent utility to calculate token usage, so help us build that one or extra that kind of stuff.
Yeah. When you build it, they'll come. So
that is yeah.
So in regards to thought leadership and doing some like future casting, right? What's a current AI capability you think is being maybe underused, especially within like enterprise softwares?
Quite a few things, I would say, but my pet peeve is my favorite application is use of voice agents.
Yeah,
I think you can do ton of. So we've been working with several products that we have developed. We've been working with the key stakeholders on implementing different voice agents on those, because now with with RAG pipelines and voice agents, you can do miracles. Like that user experience is going to get to a very, very next level. Now, again, like this is a very low hanging fruit. You can do some really cool stuff with machine learning and in other areas. But I don't see right now. We already have that tech capability to take user experience that you have. Like for example. The standard way of developing models, like software experience, was like you build a SaaS platform, you're building reports, you're doing XYZ, but now you can just you can just talk to the systems like how Star Trek portrayed, right? So I keep thinking that is going to be a huge efficiency gain in most of the environments. But needless to say, there are like several other areas where you can like implement some really strong, strong. I mean, there are strong use cases of AI in cybersecurity and some other like forecasting models and other areas. But that gets a little too complicated. But I think this stuff is very much more. Yeah,
but you get
very
into like fintech and like you said, cybersecurity, it can start to get extremely entrenched with like information. But the voice aspect, I think a lot of people aren't focusing in on that. So that is a really great one. Do you think we'll see more hybrid models kind of dominating the future, or how do you think the future of AI is going to look? Right.
So when you say hybrid models, like, can you tell a little bit which ones are you talking about? Like,
kind of like anything open source or commercial, like any hybrid models that we can start to bring into place, right? That's going to be more where we can start to see more of that kind of dominating aspects of tech.
So like to me, like I think, yeah, that's a good question. Like, so I genuinely think open source has already caught up with some of this.
Yeah.
So let's say, and so I'm assuming you're referring to like, like proprietary models versus like open source models, right? So what will be the pick in the future? So I genuinely think like for most of the applications that we're building, you can absolutely use open source models, and even so I'm not saying like if you're doing like you need serious thinking models, like you definitely need like some proprietary models, but for most of the stuff you can absolutely get away using open source models. Like as a matter of fact, like we recently implemented most of the stuff we develop is very, very like so we cannot talk in details about some of this, but we recently implemented like Llama for in a healthcare setup, and it's doing wonders. Like it's working really well.
That's
it's
nice.
really one of the advantages. One of the things that I'm seeing more and more is everybody's concerned about security and privacy and everything. So most of so in those cases, if your application doesn't require some fancy analysis or thinking or something, you could very much like get an open source model and host it on-prem, and you'd be pretty much set. So that's how I'm thinking about it. Again, like, I'm optimistic. I'm optimistic about this. Yeah,
I agree. I think that companies can definitely utilize a lot of the open source models and still be extremely successful. But then you also, do need something that's a little bit more in depth, that's going to be more customizable to organizations as a whole. So it gets into that kind of like gray area a little bit. But I think that there's going to be a lot of improvement, though. We're at our final segment, right? So we get to play a game together.
Looking for
The game is what in the world do we do? So you and I are gonna have 2 minutes, right, to solve a problem. So our client wants an AI system, right, that can summarize Zoom calls, extract action items, but they also want to regulate it into industry. So some of the meetings have contained some sensitive information, and we have 30 days to deliver this prototype. How do we start building?
My goodness, like it's so 2 minutes. Like, so this is with this tech, with current tech, this is absolutely doable. This is absolutely doable. Like you just leverage like whatever, like Otter.ai or Google Meets or something, because now meeting summarization is happening pretty efficiently. Like you cannot like I won't say it's flawless, but these tools are doing really good job of capturing meeting minutes and everything. And as a matter of fact, when ChatGPT 4 came out, I built a tool. I called it Analyze.ly, analyze.ly. I still have the domain, where what I did was I was capturing notes from some of these tools, dumping them in Analyze.ly, and Analyze.ly was a kind of like a glorified wrapper on OpenAI. See, now we've come a long way from GPT-4, like GPT-4 to now, but I was so, and this was like a year and a half ago. So I was not only processing those notes by some fancy meta prompting, but I was helping it to create a mind map or the system, defining sprints, and the goal was to plug all of those sprints into Jira, calling Jira API. Nice. So that was kind of like the needless to say, like we're good tinkerers, but we're not so good at launching these products. So, but you can very much do what you're saying today in a much better way by like. By kind of streamlining some of this. Like you can pretty much like, set up proper pipelines to get all of that data in from some of these tools, to funnel all of that information in, to analyze that, like build technical requirements, build build like whatever mind maps or so forth, and then what I was doing in those days, like start creating lining up sprints. You can even actually create proper rough. I'm not saying it will be 100% correct, but you can create better estimations on time wise and costing wise using you just need a little bit of like decent prompting done for some of this, but yeah, all of this can be absolutely done.
Yeah, I agree. Especially when you can kind of create, to your point, right? You create your pipelines early. You understand. You ask some aspects of understand what LLMs you want to use, and like you said, Zoom and like all of these have some great AI additions to them now, where it's recording a lot of the information for you. So if you can start to interconnect some of the agents it's easy to be able to get this done in no time. I totally agree. Less than 30 days, definitely not.
Yeah, you can do that, and I'm positive if we're having this conversation a year from now, it'll be like, okay, you and I talked about this product. Click on it. There could be a plugin on Zoom that will have that product ready. I don't know. So
maybe you or I will develop it. I will work together.
let's create that Zoom plugin, like from a meeting to product. I already have that domain, Brandy.
Hey, look, we're ready. We are ready. Any last words? First of all, thank you for coming on. This has been it's rare that we get to have, such a great conversation with a leader, right? Thought leader. So I just want to definitely thank you for spending your time to come on and talk to little old me, right? And about all of the technical things that you're doing, and, some of our companies are intertwined. So I love that. So any last words or?
Well, firstly, a huge thanks for everything that you're doing, because right now I'm realizing that some of us, so you have both the qualities. You're technical as well as you're a leader, and you're also good at marketing and everything, which is a huge quality that you need to have when you're building a business. So firstly, thanks for inviting folks like me on the podcast, because I'm realizing I started realizing this last year when I was invited to give a talk. And it was a room with, say, 150 or 200 people. And I assumed that most of the folks there, this is like December 2024, I assumed that pretty much quite a few of these folks would have already been using GPT and everything. Yeah. Turns out, no. And so there's only, we live in a tech bubble where we assume that everybody is understanding where this train is headed. Yeah. But we need more and more folks like you who have these conversations, so you can educate other folks that, okay, what is capable, what is possible, what is not possible, like what are the new trends, like where things are headed, all of this. So this is kind of helping. This also helps me think through some of these things, because I'll be honest, like the minute I hang up, I'm going to go tactical, catch up with the emails, all of that. So it helps chatting with like minds, because you need to do that, and so no, and I mean, so my thing would be like, more than ever, we all have to be tinkerers. We all have to learn tools. We have to adapt, and we have to keep on learning all of this. So that would be my one thing. That every weekend log a couple of hours.
Yes.
And be a part of this. Yeah. Be a part of this entire revolution, because this is like a once in a lifetime moment for all of us.
Yeah, I agree. And now's the time to be a part of it. Well, thank you very much. Right. So, and I appreciate you coming on the show.